Imagine this, a deep space research station, floating in the abyss beyond the galactic core, silent, isolated, suspended in the void like a relic of a forgotten age. Its dark metal hull barely reflected the distant starlight, an obsidian shard, lost in infinity. To most of the galaxy, it didn't even exist. There were no records, no transmission logs, no official designation. Only a handful of the Dominion's highest-ranking officials knew of its presence. And even they spoke of it only in whispers, because inside Darkpoint Station was a secret that could unmake the universe. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a bomb. It was something far, far worse. The Apex Drive. A weapon so advanced, so dangerous, that the Dominion itself had deemed it too powerful to wield. It was not a cannon, nor a missile, nor an energy-based superweapon. It was an anomaly in the laws of physics, a device that defied reality itself. It didn't just destroy, it erased. 1. Activation and a target, whether a ship, a planet, or even an entire civilization, wouldn't simply be obliterated. It would be as if it had never existed at all. No ruins, no echoes, no remnants of the past. Time itself would unravel around it, history rewoven into a new shape. Those who once lived would never have been born. Battles fought would have never happened. Every trace of their existence would be erased from memory, as though the universe had taken a deep breath and exhaled them into oblivion. The weapon had been designed in secret, meant as the Dominion's ultimate failsafe, a deterrent. But when the full implications became clear, when the greatest minds of the Dominion realized the horrors of its true potential, it was deemed too great a risk to even exist. The Apex Drive had to be locked away, not destroyed, because even the act of dismantling it could send shockwaves through reality itself. Instead, it was buried within the most secure facility in the known galaxy, Darkpoint Station. Built in a dead zone of space, where no natural wormholes formed, where no star lanes passed, where even long-range sensors struggled to penetrate the cosmic fog. It was designed with one purpose, to hold what should never have been created. Shielded by layers of artificial singularities, automated defense grids, and quantum-lock security vaults, it was an impenetrable fortress. But tonight, it was being breached. A distortion rippled through the void, a flicker barely perceptible as something arrived. It wasn't a ship in the conventional sense. No ion trail, no subspace disturbance, no heat signature. It appeared like a shadow, sliding into existence, its hull darker than the abyss, its engines humming at frequencies that made reality itself seem to shudder. The Crimson Wraiths, a name spoken in fear across the stars. The Dominion had called them pirates, but that word was too small for what they truly were. They were more than thieves, more than mercenaries. They were ghosts, a nomadic faction that operated beyond the reach of empires, beyond the laws of known physics. No one knew their true origins, only that their technology was centuries, perhaps millennia, ahead of anything the Dominion or its rivals could comprehend. Their ships bent light, their weapons ignored shields, their warriors fought with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. And now, they were here. The station's perimeter defenses should have activated the moment their presence was detected. Automated turrets should have targeted their vessel. Security AIs should have flooded the system with alerts. But there were no alarms, no warning signals, because by the time the station even realized they had arrived, they had already won. The first signs of the attack were almost imperceptible, a flicker in the station's artificial gravity, a distortion in the atmospheric processors. The lights dimmed for a fraction of a second, an anomaly so minor that the Dominion officers barely registered it. Then the screaming began. The security team stationed across Darkpoint were the best of the best. Hand-picked veterans of galactic wars, equipped with state-of-the-art Dominion battle armor. Their neural implants linked directly to the station's tactical grid. And yet, they were falling like children against an invisible force. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't even an ambush. It was a slaughter. Hallway cameras flickered and died. Emergency distress beacons were activated and then deactivated, remotely hijacked before a single message could be sent. Entire wings of the station went silent in seconds. The last thing the Central Command team heard from their security forces were fragmented transmissions, whispers of shadows moving in the walls, figures appearing where no one should be, and weapons that tore through armor like it was mist. And then, silence. In the heart of the station, buried beneath layers of reinforced alloys, was the Apex Vault, a chamber sealed with a security code known only to 3 people in the entire Dominion hierarchy. A vault built with reality-bending locks that should have been unbreakable. Yet, as the remaining officers huddled in the command center, helplessly watching their systems fail one by one, they saw the impossible. The vault was opening. Not forced, not cut through with weapons. It was simply unlocking, as if the station itself had decided to surrender. The last functioning camera feed showed a group of figures standing before the Apex drive. Cloaked in shifting armor, their faces hidden beneath featureless masks, they moved with precision beyond anything human. One of them reached forward, pressing a gloved hand against the swirling core of the Apex drive, and for the briefest moment, so brief it could have been an illusion, the stars outside seemed to shudder. Reality warped. A pressure rippled through existence, like the breath of something ancient stirring from slumber. Then the feed cut to black. Darkpoint Station never sent another transmission. By the time Dominion reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left but drifting wreckage. No bodies. No survivors, and no sign of the Apex drive, the greatest weapon in the history of the universe. What had vanished, or worse, it had been taken. And somewhere, in the infinite dark of space, the Crimson Wraiths were preparing to use it. The Dominion was vast, an empire that stretched across 1,000 star systems, with fleets that could blot out the skies of entire planets, weapons capable of shattering moons, and armies numbering in the trillions. And yet, in the face of what had just happened, they were afraid. The moment Dominion High Command lost contact with Darkpoint Station, alarms rippled across the Empire. The station's location had been one of their most closely guarded secrets, theoretically impossible to find, even harder to reach and absolutely impossible to breach, and yet it was gone. The station's fail-safe protocols should have triggered a last resort data burst, a fragmented distress signal, a corrupted emergency beacon, something. But nothing came. It was as if the station had simply been erased from existence. For a moment, some feared the Apex drive had activated itself, that its power had somehow triggered an anomaly, devouring the station and everyone in it. But when Dominion warships arrived at the coordinates, they found wreckage. This was no accident, no experiment gone wrong. It was an attack. And what was missing, the one thing that should have never left that station, was now the most dangerous object in the galaxy. The moment High Command confirmed the Apex drive had been stolen, the Dominion declared Level 0 containment protocols, the highest state of emergency in recorded history. Fleets mobilized, intelligence agencies swept the galaxy, bounty contracts soared into the trillions. Every mercenary, every warlord, every hunter for hire across the cosmos was given a single message: find the Apex drive, or die trying. But the truth was, it was already too late. The Wraiths had vanished, and they had left behind a message. It's he. Came in the form of a signal, untraceable, bouncing between deep space relays encrypted in ways that defied decryption. It wasn't intercepted through normal means. It forced itself into every Dominion military channel, overriding even their most secure networks. A voice, calm, emotionless, inhuman, spoke 3 words. Time is broken. Then, silence. No demands. No threats. No negotiations. Just those words. And across the Dominion's most classified intelligence networks, a terrifying realization began to take shape. The Crimson Wraiths hadn't just stolen the Apex drive to use it as a weapon. No, if they had wanted to destroy planets, if they had simply wanted to unmake a fleet or an empire, they would have already done it. This wasn't about war. This was about something bigger, because if the Apex drive truly rewrote reality, then What if they weren't planning to erase the Dominion? What if they were planning to erase something else, a secret, a truth, a piece of history that was never meant to be uncovered, something so vast, so terrifying, that the Wraiths were willing to reshape the entire timeline itself, to bring it back. Aboard the Dominion's flagship Oblivion Spear, Grand Admiral Renka Zai stood at the center of the war room, staring at the impossible, the remnants of Dark Point Station. The largest pieces had been pulled into the ship's hangar for analysis. Twisted corridors, shattered bulkheads, melted security turrets. But what unnerved her the most wasn't the destruction itself. It was what wasn't there. No bodies, not a single corpse, not even biological residue. Every member of the station's crew, over 10,000 elite Dominion officers, was simply gone. "Were they taken?" she asked, her voice colder than vacuum. One of her science officers swallowed hard before responding. We don't think so, Admiral. We ran full-spectrum scans. There's no trace of organic matter, no signs of life support malfunctions, no escape pods missing. It's like... Like what? The officer hesitated, as if the words themselves felt dangerous, like they were never there to begin with. Renkazai's hands curled into fists behind her back. This was worse than she had imagined. If the Wraiths had used the Apex drive already, even once, then reality had already been altered. And the worst part? No one would ever know what had been changed. The stars outside the viewport of the war room seemed unchanged. The galaxy still looked the same, but something somewhere had shifted. Something had already been rewritten, and if they didn't stop the Wraiths soon, it would happen again. Elsewhere, far beyond the Dominion's reach, in a sector of space that did not exist on any known star charts, a lone ship drifted in absolute silence. It was unlike any known design, its structure appearing to shift and bend as if it refused to be perceived in a single form. Its surface was covered in a material that seemed more like the void itself, rather, than metal, drinking in all light that touched it. Inside the ship, deep within its command chamber, the Apex drive pulsed. It no longer sat within a containment vault. It no longer rested in its prison. It was free and it was awakening. At the center of the room, the leader of the Crimson Wraiths stood before the device, their face hidden beneath a mask that was impossibly smooth, as if carved from the very fabric of the void. Their presence was an absence, something that could be sensed but not fully understood. They reached out, placing a single hand upon the Apex drive's surface. The universe shuddered, and somewhere, across the galaxy, in places where no one was watching, reality changed. The hunt began. The Dominion's intelligence network stretched across 1,000 systems, embedded in every major civilization, infiltrating governments, syndicates, and black market traders. No movement in the galaxy went unnoticed. No one could hide from them, and yet the Crimson Wraiths had disappeared, not a single trace. No hyperspace signatures, no merchant bribes, no informants whispering about hidden bases. Nothing. At first, Dominion High Command believed they had simply gone to ground, hiding in some uncharted sector, waiting for the chaos to die down before making their next move. Then the anomalies began. It started small, a missing fleet report. A single Dominion battle group, 5 warships including the dreadnought Iron Fist, had gone silent in the Myrax Nebula. No distress signals, no wreckage. Then entire colonies vanished from records, not attacked, not destroyed, erased. Planets, where billions had once lived, were now nothing but barren, uninhabited wastelands, uncharted as if no one had ever settled them at all. Even more terrifying were the people who remembered things differently. A Dominion senator who swore he had a daughter, a girl with bright green eyes, a love for astronomy, a scholarship at the Galactic Academy. Yet no one else remembered her. No records, no birth certificate, no DNA samples, as if she had never existed. And yet, he remembered. More reports followed, whole histories rewritten. Events that should have happened no longer had. At first, the Dominion believed it was a glitch in their archives, a system-wide corruption of historical records. But then the impossible happened. A Dominion historian presented a star map, a chart of the Empire's controlled sectors, and in the middle of it, a black void, a region of space where nothing existed. No stars, no planets, no records, except there should have been a civilization there, a once great empire, a people who had built wonders that defied comprehension, who had waged wars that reshaped the cosmos, who had stood on the edge of godhood itself. They were gone. No remnants, no ruins, no ancient wreckage. And yet some still remembered. Faint memories, half-forgotten dreams, flashes of names and places that no longer existed, as if something had wiped them away, but hadn't done it perfectly. Something powerful. Something. Like the Apex Drive, aboard the Dominion warship Veil of Retribution, the highest-ranking minds of the Empire gathered in a classified war council. Grand Admiral Renka Zai stood at the head of the table, her cold gaze sweeping over the assembled officers, scientists, and strategists. Behind her, a holographic projection flickered, a recording recovered from the wreckage of Dark Point Station, the final moments before the Apex Drive had been stolen. The room watched in absolute silence as the masked wraiths breached the vault. As they touched the Apex Drive, and as reality shuddered, then the moment that sent chills through every soul in the chamber, a distortion, a ripple through the recording itself, as if something, some intelligence beyond comprehension, had noticed it was being watched. And then, for exactly one frame of footage, a figure appeared, not a wraith, not a Dominion officer, something else. Tall, monolithic, featureless, a presence more than a shape, as if reality itself had bent to form its outline. And in that single moment, every piece of technology in the war room failed. Holograms flickered and died. Screens went black. A deep, bone-rattling hum filled the air, something ancient stirring within the very fabric of space-time, and every officer in the room felt it staring back at them. Then the systems rebooted. The distortion was gone, but Renkazai knew what she had seen, what they had all seen, and for the first time in her life, standing before the most brilliant minds of the Dominion, she uttered words that had never been spoken in the Empire's history. We are not the masters of this universe. Something older than us, something more powerful than we can comprehend, is watching. And the wraiths had just woken it up, elsewhere, in the infinite dark, aboard the wraith's flagship. The Apex Drive pulsed, its unnatural glow casting flickering patterns of unreality across the chamber walls. The wraith leader stood before it, motionless, listening. The others knelt around the device, whispering in a language that had not been spoken in 100,000 years. Not since the last civilization was erased. The wraith leader reached out once more, fingers pressing against the Apex Drive. The universe shuddered again. And this time, a voice spoke back, a voice that had not been heard in 1,000,000 lifetimes, a voice from the dark between galaxies, a voice that whispered one name, the name of the civilization that had been erased, the name of those who had come before. Vilzir. The moment the name was spoken, stars trembled, and across the galaxy, the dead began to wake. Across the galaxy, the dead stirred. It began as whispers. Not voices in the air, not sounds that could be recorded, but thoughts, fragments of memory that should not exist. People woke from their sleep, their hearts pounding, with a name they had never heard before, yet had always known. Velzadot, a Dominion scout ship, the Zephyr Blade, was the first to report something physically impossible. The ship had been traveling through the Draken expanse, an uninhabited void between stars. It was a dead region. No planets, no debris, nothing. And then planets appeared, not in the distance, not drifting through space. They were just there. Where an hour ago there had been empty blackness, now 3 massive ruined worlds hung in space like corpses of forgotten gods. The crew scrambled to check their star charts. No records, no explanations, as if these planets had been erased from time itself and had just returned. But that wasn't the worst part. As the ship's scanners swept across the surface of the largest planet, they picked up movement. And something looked back. The ship's logs ended there. when a Dominion battle group arrived a day later. To investigate, they found no trace of the Zephyr blade, no wreckage, no emergency beacons, not even the smallest particle of debris, as if it had never existed. Aboard the Dominion flagship, Oblivion Spear, Grand Admiral Renka Zai stood in front of a vast, holographic star map. She was surrounded by the highest-ranking minds of the Dominion, scientists, strategists, and warlords, all staring at the same impossible truth. The galaxy was changing. Stars were shifting in ways that defied physics. Planets they had mapped for centuries were gone. Other worlds wiped from history were reappearing, and across the Dominion's intelligence networks, one message kept repeating, coming from different sources, unconnected sectors, different species. A single word, Vaelzir.Renka's voice, was calm, but every officer in the room could feel the tension beneath it. Explain. No one spoke. No one moved. Finally, an old scientist, one of the last precursor historians, stepped forward. His voice was barely above a whisper. The Vaelzir were a myth. Renka's cold eyes narrowed. No, a myth does not rewrite the galaxy in real time. The scientist swallowed hard. They were the ones who came before, a civilization so powerful that they didn't conquer the stars. They became them. Their technology was beyond anything we understand. They weren't just an empire, they were a force of nature. Some believed they had transcended time itself. Renka gestured sharply to the star map. Then why don't we remember them? The scientist hesitated. Then, almost reluctantly, he said the words that had been locked away in ancient, forbidden records. Because they were erased. The room fell into dead silence. The scientist continued, his voice growing weaker with each word. Not defeated, not conquered, erased, removed from reality, wiped from the minds of every living thing, their cities, their fleets, their people, all unmade. Renka's jaw tightened. By who? The scientist closed his eyes. No one knows. Some say it was a war they couldn't win. Others say they reached too far, that they tried to rewrite the universe itself, and when they did, something erased them. The holographic star map flickered. More anomalies, more distortions in time and space. Renka clenched her fists. The Wraiths hadn't stolen the Apex Drive to conquer the Dominion. They had stolen it to bring back the Vaelzir, and whatever had erased them in the first place would not be happy. Deep in the void, aboard the Wraith's flagship, the Apex Drive pulsed like a living thing, a wound in reality itself. The leader of the Crimson Wraiths knelt before it, motionless. The masked figures surrounding them chanted, in a tongue that had not been spoken in a million years, a voice cold, ageless, alien beyond comprehension, spoke from the darkness. The wound is open. The Apex Drive shuddered. Energy rippled through the chamber, twisting space itself, bending the laws of physics, and beyond the veil of time, something awoke, something that should have stayed forgotten. The Wraith leader rose slowly. Beneath their mask, their eyes burned. With the knowledge of 1,000 lost ages, "It is done," they whispered. And across the galaxy, the stars began to scream. The first true sign of the end came in the skies above Halcyon Prime, a world of towering spires and luminous cities, the heart of the Dominion's vast empire. Its surface was bathed in the golden glow of twin suns, its orbital shipyards constructing fleets that spanned across the void. And then, the sky shattered, not an explosion, not an invasion. Reality itself broke. A rift, blacker than the emptiness between galaxies, tore through the heavens. Stars blinked out. The twin suns twisted, stretching like liquid, their light spilling in impossible directions. And then, they came through. Not ships, not anything that belonged in this reality. The Vaelzir. They did not move. They did not descend. They simply were vast geometric forms, hovering impossibly above the planet, shapes that should not have existed, impossibly symmetrical, shifting between dimensions. Their surfaces reflected nothing, absorbed everything. The people of Halcyon Prime began to forget. At first, small things. A name, a memory, the reason they had walked into a room. Then, the buildings began to fade, the great spires, the neon streets, the bustling markets, vanishing from reality one by one as if they had never been. Millions screamed, and then they stopped, not because they had died, because they had never existed. Aboard the Dominion warship Abyss Eternal, orbiting Halcyon Prime, Grand Admiral Renka Zai watched her homeworld disappear, not burn, not shatter, simply vanish. Entire districts of the capital faded like mist. Ships flickered out of existence, their crews gone. Her own officers aboard the bridge began to vanish, mid-sentence, and yet, she remembered. Somehow, against all reason, she still remembered the people who were gone. Her hands trembled as she activated the ship's interstellar comms, sending out a message to every surviving Dominion fleet. "This is Grand Admiral Renka Zai. We are under attack." Her voice was steady, but the terror in her eyes was undeniable. "The Vaelzir are real. They are not invaders, they are erasers. We don't just lose wars against them, we cease to exist." She turned toward her science officer, the only one still standing at their station. "How do we fight something that erases us from reality?" The scientist's voice was hollow. "We don't." Renka clenched her fists. "There has to be a way." The scientist's hands trembled as he pulled up data on the Apex drive. "There's only one way," he whispered. "The Apex drive wasn't just a weapon. It was a lock, a failsafe. The last thing the last civilization created before the Vaelzir erased them." He looked at Renka with desperate eyes. "They locked the Vaelzir away, buried them outside of time, and now the Wraiths have let them back in." Renka felt the weight of the revelation crash down on her. The Apex drive had never been meant to be used. It had been meant to keep something from waking up, and now it was too late. Aboard the Wraith's flagship, the leader of the Crimson Wraith stood before the Apex drive, watching as the universe unmade itself. The return of the Vaelzir was not an invasion, it was correction. This universe had never been meant to exist. The Wraiths had always known the truth. Whispered in secret, passed down through the shadows of forgotten history, the Dominion, the countless empires, the trillions upon trillions of lives across the stars, all an accident, a mistake that the Vaelzir had been forced to erase once, before. But something had gone wrong. Remnants had survived. The Dominion had built itself atop the ashes of a forgotten past, never knowing they were living in a reality that was never meant to be. And now, the Vaelzir had returned to finish what they started. The Wraith leader turned to their followers. "We have done what must be done," they said. They did not speak with fear, they spoke with reverence. "The cycle is complete." And as the Apex drive pulsed one final time, they vanished. Not died, not destroyed, simply an undone. The last stand. Renka Zai had always been a warrior. She had led fleets into battle. She had crushed rebellions, conquered systems, broken entire civilizations beneath the Dominion's rule, and yet she had never known true fear until she saw the stars go out. One by one, constellations blinked into nothingness. Space itself was collapsing, and soon her fleet, her ship, she herself would be erased. She refused to let it happen without a fight. Turning to her crew, the few who were still there, the last ones who had not yet been erased, she spoke her final command. "We fire everything." It was a hopeless command, a last act of defiance against a force beyond comprehension. The fleet's weapons unleashed hell into the void. Energy beams, nuclear warheads, quantum torpedoes, everything the Dominion had. It did nothing. The Vaelzir did not move. They did not acknowledge the attack. They did not care. And then, the Abyss Eternal flickered. Her crew began to vanish. Renka felt it then, her own body unraveling, her hands turning to mist, her voice fading into silence, and in her final moment, she remembered something that never happened, a life that was never real, a world that no longer existed, and then she was gone, and just like that, the Dominion ceased to be. Across the galaxy, every trace of it vanished, not conquered, not destroyed, forgotten. The Dominion had never existed. The universe, now corrected, continued on as it was meant to. No one would ever know what had been lost. No one would remember except, perhaps, something deep in the void, something that had once been called Renka Zai, a whisper drifting through a universe that no longer knew her name, a single, lingering thought. I was here. Final words. What if the universe you knew was never supposed to exist? What if something older than time was meant to erase it? And what if, right now, it was already happening and you had simply forgotten? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, history is written by the victors, or, in this case, by the ones who survive. This is the end of the story. It has been an epic, cosmic, mind-bending journey. If you want more deep, dark sci-fi stories like this, let me know. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to XenoChronicles. Until next time, keep watching the stars, because something might be watching back.